So if we want to tie corners of the boat into a small cove during a storm, or spots that it's just there is no shallow spot to hold your anchor and be able to swing around and have it hold. Set the anchor on the steep and you hold it on the steep slope by tying off to shore. Right now we're just backing towards shore to figure out how far back we can settle safely. It's still about 30 feet deep right here, and we're about 50 feet from the rock, so that's pretty ideal. First back down into the spot that we're proposing to settle into, just testing the depth of the water back there. I backed up further than we would ever settle back and made sure that even at low tide there was nothing shallow, no surprises. So now we're going to pull back up forward, drop our anchor, and settle back into that spot that we just kind of tested out. A lot of these spots you drop your anchor in pretty deep water and you're backing into the shallows. So you want to go out further than you think and kind of get your anchor and your chain down before you start backing down, because by the time you let your scope out and have that start hooking, you're going to settle back a little further than you thought. If you have the chain, you can always let out more chain if it sets really good, you know, and you're not back as far as you want to be. You can just keep letting out chain, but you want to make sure that you have enough room to let your scope out and get the anchor caught before you're settled back to where you want to tie your shore tie lines on. As soon as I drop the anchor, I can mark the spot on an anchor watch app as well as my track drawing from there, so you kind of know where you dropped your anchor and how you're moving since then. So now we've dropped our anchor, we're backing down on it and backing up into the cove, settling the spot that we've already tested by backing up into it. And then we're probably going to keep the boat in reverse to hold it in place, hold it against the anchor that we're now setting. I'm increasing the RPMs to make sure that the anchor is really setting into place where I think it is. 2,000 RPM and no movement. Leave it there for a couple of minutes, because once you've let your chain out, you know, if you just put it in gear just enough to lift your chain up, it doesn't really test the anchor. You got to put it in gear long enough to lift the chain up and then pull back on the anchor as well. Tying off to shore, you're going to be pulled back to shore, so you don't want that to drag, because that's what's going to hold you off of shore. Right now we're absolutely dead calm. I have two lineups on shore and I can tell if they move away from each other, if I'm moving at all. And we're looking really good here. We're locked into place. Ease off on the RPM, but I'm going to leave it in reverse so that the boat doesn't drift back up towards the anchor and it doesn't swing around. I'm going to leave it in reverse so that as I go work the shore tie lines, she's going to kind of hold herself in place here. I have big 3-inch wide webbing straps that I tie off with. I don't prefer the chain because a lot of times a tree ends up being the best to tie off to, and the tree does not appreciate a chain digging into its trunk. Use two of these, and I make them longer than you think, because sometimes the boulder that you want to strap to is going to be huge and you need like a 30-foot strap just to get around the whole boulder. But a lot of times it's going to end up being either a boulder or a tree, so I like the big wide webbing straps for that. Eye up the shoreline, tight above the high tide line, as close to the edge of shore as possible. You don't want any or minimal chafe ability. So from where you tie off to the drop off to the shore, you want it to be minimal things that your attachment point could chafe on. Emily will stay here and man the controls, and I'll have a handheld VHF radio so we can talk to each other. I will hop in the tender and take the shorelines to shore to set them. You read some things that say it has to be floating line. Well, what they don't tell you is that floating line costs about 4 times as much for the same length. I got the non-floating line, got really long length, a little over 100 meters on each reel. So I just have a little series of a couple small buoys. You don't want sinking line because it could go down and get caught on a rock or even get caught on your rudder, but if you keep your lines tight enough, which they should be, and a few small little crab pot type buoys on them, then it'd be a more economical way for me to have done it. But 5-ton carabiner, stainless steel carabiner, that attaches the webbing to a big tow strap on that side and the cable, old big fat cable that's already been around this tree for years. So now I'll just tighten up each one of those and tighten it up against the anchor chain, and we're there. If it were high tide right now and we were just setting these, I wouldn't pull them as tight as I am right now. But at low tide, you can set everything real tight and then you'll float up into it with a little bit of slack. The biggest thing is make sure that the anchor is really well set back down on it super hard before you bother tying up your shore tie line. So I think that's probably the number one most important. So these giant reels of webbing are by far the most convenient way that I found to store and retrieve your shore tie lines. For a number of years I had like a big sail bag full of nylon line, and man, you pull it in and first of all it's huge, you know, a couple hundred feet of nylon line thick enough to do this kind of thing with is huge, and then it's wet for days. I didn't even want to put it back in the locker. It felt like it was just sitting around. So these reels, a number of different companies make them. This one is a great Swedish company called Unkarlina. It's rated for a very high weight amount, and as soon as you're done with it, it has these little miniature winch handles, and they slide in, and you just reel that webbing strap right back in. If you've ever dealt with shore tie lines, you know that those big wet things are a pain in the ass afterwards. So if you're going to be shore tying a lot, having these reels is a good investment. With the second person on board, we're neutral, and you're only going to use the controls if we need to. So we will have the bow thruster on, we'll have the engines running, and have everything ready to go. Pull your anchor chain up enough, unsnugged, ready to just keep winding it in. The anchor windlass on and ready to control at the helm. If you don't have that, great investment. You can do it yourself. It's just a matter of running wires, and for dropping the anchor, that's invaluable, but different subject. So Emily will be at the helm, and as soon as I untie the shore lines, if I see the boat swinging towards the rocks, I'm gonna guide her to start pulling in the anchor chain, which will keep the boat pulling away from shore as I'm disconnecting the shore tie lines. But you'll only do that on command as we see the boat moving. But if nothing moves out of control, then we're going to disconnect the shore lines one by one, pull them in, and then pull up the anchor as you do normally. If the boat starts moving around, then you're going to start pulling in the anchor chain and maneuvering the boat to make sure that it starts moving towards where our anchor is set and away from the rocks behind us. Observe where the wind's blowing from. Our wind is on shore here, so to speak. So if I untie our shore tie lines, we're going to be hanging from our anchor chain, being pulled in towards shore. We should have enough swing room to not hit the rocks, but we're going to be aware of that. So figure out which shore tie line your boat is kind of favoring hanging on and disconnect that one last. You disconnect that one and the boat starts moving. You know, you're in the dinghy, you can always catch up, have the operator of the boat err on the side of pulling in the anchor chain and putting in gear and keeping themselves moving away from shore as soon as those shore tie lines are disconnected. You can always catch up in the dinghy if they start heading out the bay without you. If you're by yourself, invaluable tool is autopilot wireless remote control. B&G offers one. WR10 is the name of this device, and it actually has a really surprising good range on it. You can put the autopilot in a mode called follow-up, meaning it just holds the rudder and you just turn the rudder with your 1 or 10 degree increments, and it'll just hold it there. It'll just turn the rudder as you tell it to. And the anchor is on a very steep slope. If it gets pulled anywhere then upslope, it's going to disengage and the boat's going to be able to swing away. So if you keep the boat in reverse, you can keep the anchor engaged in the upslope. And from shore, if I saw the boat swinging one way or the other, I could actually, with my remote control, adjust the rudder so that I could kind of get it to reverse on the anchor towards one way or the other. You just got to be faster about it. So more of your quick disconnect, have the big carabiners instead of different disconnect device that might take a wrench or tools. Big fat stainless steel carabiner rated for 5 tons, I think is what these are rated for. I'd pay more attention to which one you're going to disconnect and is going to let the boat move more, and maybe invest in a little technology that's going to help you control the boat remotely.